Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is Unit 2, Lesson 1 presentation. In this presentation, we're going to overview some of the different types of factors that contributed to the rise and development of early humans in our world. Now, in order to understand world culture from a holistic standpoint, we have to take it back, way back, to the dawn of mankind to understand how culture originally might have been and how it, of course, developed throughout the years. Before I begin, please let me encourage you to open up your Google Doc and to fill in any key content or answer any key concept questions as we progress. Remember, you can replay any part of this presentation that you might need for detail and clarity. If you've ever asked yourself, what is the difference between a fossil and an artifact? What can archaeologists learn from fossils anyway? And what do you think archaeologists study about the past? This lesson is not only for you, it's really for all of us. We can understand so much about who we are today from who we used to be. Here's what I mean. The beginning origins of man can be defined and described as a long time of developmental happening. Mankind was thought to have started in Africa. We have found artifacts, fossils, and human remains in this part of the world. And not only that, these artifacts can also be found in other areas of the world too, but later on. Africa's artifacts are in fact the oldest. In case you're wondering, how do we know this as a fact? Well, we use carbon-14 dating. Carbon-14 dating basically measures the amount of carbon in an artifact and compares it to give it approximate age. So I guess a modern day equivalency would be if you ever cut down a tree and saw rings inside of a tree. That's pretty much the premise of what this is and how that works. The migration of early humans is somewhat complicated to explain, but many anthropologists have come up with a route that people might have migrated throughout the world. With early origins in Africa, many early signs of early man show us and tell us that they have spread throughout the continent in different ways. But of course, if you look from a broader perspective, mankind migrated out of Africa in what was now to know today as the Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, down through Southeast Asia, and to Australia. Later on, mankind would find other ways to move to and through the rest of Asia, Europe, and North and South America. But for now, our focus will be on the 5 early hominids. We have the Australs, we have the Homo habilis, we have the Homo erectus, the Neanderthals, and the Cro-Magnon. Before we begin, you can see here from the Australopithecus being the first and most primitive form of humankind, followed by the habilis, followed by the erectus, followed by the Neanderthals, and the Cro-Magnons. What do all these types of man have in common? They, of course, developed through the years, through different types of factors that have impacted them, and in turn, they have, of course, formed today our concept of the modern man. Let's talk about the Australs first. They lived 4 million to 1 million BC. They're the first human-like creatures to walk upright. Not only that, Mary Leakey found evidence of the Australs in Africa in 1978, and later on, Johansen found the first hominid, Lucy, in Africa. The Australs that lived to be 3.5 million years ago were unique and dynamic for the following few reasons. They provided us evidence of the first full skeleton found of this species. And from this skeleton, we were able to, of course, deduce certain types of facts or conceived facts of what their lifestyles might have been like. Keep in mind, for example, that they might have walked upright due to evolutionary changes in the environment around them. There might have been something that happened that, of course, forced them to walk like that over the years. And then there's the Homo habilis. Lived from 2.5 million to 1.5 million BC, the Homo habilis means man of skill. They thought to be the first to make stone tools, which I'm sure you can imagine were revolutionary for the time. They used the tools to cut meat and crack bones, and additionally, this evidence shows us that they could even cut elephant meat, which I'm sure you can imagine was probably pretty thick for the times. Now, they're jokingly known as the handyman. However, we shouldn't belittle their accomplishments to world history and world culture in the sense that they, in fact, changed the game of ingenuity and innovation forever. Here are some examples of early stone tools found from the habilis. These may not look impressive to you, but of course when we consider what they were capable of doing both physically and mentally, this is truly profound. And then there's the Homo erectus. Lived from 1.6 million to 30,000 BC, the Homo erectus remains found in Africa, Asia, and Europe. Additionally, they're considered to be the upright man, as they have a fully developed spinal column. They developed new ways of using stone tools too, but what they're really known for, of course, is digging, scraping, etc. It's also uses for hunting for food, but they're for the first group to control and create fire. I'm sure you can imagine that fire is a game changer. Fire allows mankind to not only stay warm, but to prepare food. With prepared food, this of course affects the nutrition and dietary habits of the people that we're talking about here, and this can change their physiology in a big, big way. They're also thought to have created the first spoken or oral language too. When many people look at the essence of what they had going on inside of their anatomy, many people can deduce that they were able to not only speak, but also maybe even speak in different ways that, of course, the earlier mankinds could not. Before we go on, you can see some profound differences between different types of mankind. Over time, please realize that there's different types of factors that combine to form our understanding of what is evolution. Some parts narrow, some parts grow, some parts become thicker, some parts become leaner and thinner. Next, we have the Homo sapiens. The Homo sapiens, of course, were the first common humans, as we refer to them as. They lived from 100,000 to 400,000 years ago, and additionally, the Cro-Magnon man and Neanderthals are considered the first two early Homo sapiens together. What makes them modern man? Well, they traveled from Africa to Asia, Europe, and then to the Americas. So this type of mankind, of course, is known for traveling pretty much the entire world. Known as the wise men, they were believed to have incredible memory and capability. When we look at the power of psychology and what the brain can actually contribute to our understanding of culture, look no farther than the Homo sapiens for that type of essence. Now let's compare the last stage of mankind from Cro-Magnon to Neanderthals. Cro-Magnon can be found in Europe. Cro-Magnon are considered fully modern developed humans today, as they're the last stage of mankind. They created cave art, which many people say is the first sign of history, and they studied animals and stalked their prey, and they even memorized their migration patterns too. The Neanderthal, however, was only found in Europe and Southwest Asia. They battled the Cro-Magnons for food and land, and they were first to have ritual burials too, which is interesting, so one has to think whether or not they understood the essence of life and death in this way. Even though they were very muscular built, they looked like traditional cavemen. So that's why we kind of sort of give an edge and advantage as far as modern and contemporary hominids to the Cro-Magnon. Here's a timeline that pretty much puts everything into perspective that we just talked about. As you can see, there's different types of mankind that exist during different phases of the story of us. And understanding this timeline helps us understand really who we are. Think about some of these changes that might have happened in the Earth that caused them to change. Once again, we don't know for sure what might have happened, but we can definitely know through the developmental remains left behind of what these people might have been like. The lives of early humans, of course, are up to interpretation too. We can deduce that they might have lived in clans or groups of people. They were nomadic people who traveled from place to place, or often cave to cave. They followed food sources wherever they went, mostly animals, and they were dependent off of wild plants and animals too. Men were usually hunters, and women usually gathered in their respective societies. Additionally, early humans developed their own cultural norms and ways and means with time. They were always in constant search for shelter, water, and food, hence why they might have been nomadic. Moving from place to place to place can have its advantages and disadvantages. These cave paintings show us and tell us how early man might have lived. Yes, they're the oldest, and they're found about 30,000 to 40,000 years ago, but these cave paintings can be found across caves in Europe as well as Africa and Australia. One can only sit back and wonder, what were they trying to say and express? Now, this is possibly part of religious ceremonies, or possibly part of history recording, or maybe even just a journal or diary entry of a daily activity. However, no matter how you look at it, there's no doubt that they were trying to tell us something. And as we look here in awe, we can try to understand what their lives might have been like. So think about this before we close out. The story of us is not just the story of understanding different types of mankind and how it developed, but it's understanding why they developed the way that they did. So please answer the final key concept questions and remember to finish all parts of your lesson before submitting on Google Classroom. Thank you very much for tuning in.